Today, we discuss Miro. Listen, when it comes to running client workshops, the dream, of course, is to get those creative juices flowing, right? But typically what ends up happening is thousands of hours get wasted because of poorly facilitated meetings. So I have Maya with me today. She's a consultant who runs Fortune 100 workshops, from leadership training to team building, and she has the insider tip on what makes things work. Maya?
Thank you, Jason. I've been doing this a long time. My number one tip is to bring everyone into that visual collaboration platform. So personally, I use Miro, and it's completely changed how I interact with the room. You have to give people a way to feel like they're in the room even when they're not. That's something you can do easily in Miro. Otherwise, they've seen the same slides and format 1,000 times.
Falling asleep, eyes glazing over, yawns, all that.
Exactly. When people follow me on the Miro board, everyone is literally going on a journey with me. We're adding thoughts, we're reacting, and we're voting for the best ideas. It's great.
Connective magic. I like it. That's MIRO.com.
That was a good waste of 10 minutes, right? Not quite.
Spockcast.
Welcome to nothing but Spockcast. Yeah,
Where we forgot to do all this stuff because it's been a long time.
And we're silly. Well, welcome to this podcast. My name is Tim Mitchell, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined, as usual, by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And we also have Jonathan Kuline from the nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario.
Hey, we're back.
Woohoo! All right, it's been a while. But we're back to talk about some short subjects today.
One long subject and one short subject.
Did I say this is episode 27? I didn't say that, did I?
Nope.
Oh, by the way, this is episode 27.
Oh, welcome to episode 27.
Yeah, welcome to episode 27 of the... Yeah, no, we don't say that on this show. Yeah, okay. Anyway, what do we say? I don't know. I gotta go back and listen.
You just listened to an episode, man. I thought you knew it.
No,
I don't remember.
It was a 2-hour episode. I don't remember what happened 2 hours ago. Come
Here's
on.
some real-time fact check. So, episode 26, Avengers: The Empire Strikes Back, was on May 15th of 2018. So that's where we're a little rusty because we've had a hiatus, just like many shows have had their season hiatuses.
That's true. Yeah. So, are you in a hotel, John?
Yep.
You did say okay. So,
Sheraton, Ottawa, live from the Ottawa Sheraton.
I think I've actually been in that one actually. Yeah. You like right downtown?
Yep, yeah, like block south of the hill, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I think I went to a wedding there. I think you're, not your cousin, I guess. You're not your pseudo-cousin, Sarah.
Ah, yes. Unofficial cousin.
I believe she was married there, so or reception there. Mm-hmm. Something there. I don't know. I think we've stayed in that hotel a couple of times, or near there anyway. They're all the same. So anyway, yeah, we did some. I did some fact check just while I was listening, because that's why I was listening, of course. At around 7:10 on the show, I discussed the Poseidon Adventure as possibly being a movie by Irwin Allen, because we were talking about all the sort of properties that he did, and I don't believe that the Poseidon Adventure was a movie by Irwin Allen, so I checked it, couldn't figure that out. And Jonathan mentioned he would really, really like on his Christmas list a Jared Leto action figure from Blade Runner 2049. And in fact, you can get a Jared Leto action figure from Blade Runner 2049. In fact, I just checked. You can get the...
Does it come with real stabbing action?
No, I don't know. But the other character, I've forgotten, the other robot that replicant that he sends out to kill everybody.
Yeah.
They come in a pair, those two to come together. And what's the name? Deckard and Kay come as a pair, right? And it's interesting because I went online and in stock they have them for $39 on the site where they're manufactured, Nemco or something like that. But of course, there's a fact check for next time. But on Amazon, or it's not on Amazon, Amazon.com, they're selling them for like $239. So like I guess somebody's trying to make a few bucks on this thing, right? So
yeah.
They're just action figures from a movie like 2 out of 3 of us didn't see until it was like really, really late in the game, right?
It's like, oh, look, it's Harrison Ford in a t-shirt and jeans.
And he's like old. What's going on here? Yeah.
Does he come
And
with
actually,
real moping action as opposed to real stabbing action?
Yeah. So we were goofing around on the last show, and it was another one where we had quite a hiatus, because before that was the Black Panther movie, and then the reason we came back to the last time was for Infinity Gauntlet, Avengers Infinity Gauntlet, and also because
Infinity War.
Thank you, War. Oh, I see. Right. And also because Jaime had finally watched Blade Runner 2049, but at one point we were getting all confused, and Jaime sort of said we should have a recap called Last Time on Spockcast. So last time on Spockcast, we discussed Westworld coming back, and I hadn't watched it. I have watched it now. I'm guessing that Jaime hasn't watched it yet, right?
Not season 2.
Using the 2 out of 3 thing. So Jonathan, should we talk about Westworld now, or?
Well, it depends on how bad you want to mess up Jaime's night, I guess.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's been a while. Do we want to ease it back in for him, or are we just going to dive right in?
We can just kind of skirt around. I mean, because for me, if I can, just for a minute, I found it a little bit more confusing than the first one. It just sort of seemed more like the reverse of The Walking Dead for the whole season. It seemed, lots of vengeance is mine and kind of stuff, and there wasn't as much, hidden. They weren't playing with the timelines as much in the first season. So I found it, it was interesting, but in some ways weaker than the first season, I guess. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, I started out very enthusiastic on it. I really enjoyed season 1, and I really enjoy a lot of the performers that are on that show. But I really found like it fizzled for me towards the end. I think when we talked about it, the season was sort of early or midway, and I was still feeling very bullish on it. But I think as it went on, I felt more and more like it was a lot of build up for a very little amount of delivery, which is disappointing. Because there's so many great elements. That being said, where it ends up, and I will not completely spoil it for Jaime, but where the season ends and the bridge to season 3 did have me very much intrigued. The fact that they seem like they're going to explore more going forward, and the wider world, and sort of what's beyond the park in some interesting ways. In spite of the fact that the season didn't quite deliver on all the build-up, I'm excited about where they can go next, because even the little tastes we got of what's beyond seem really, really intriguing. And I thought, as convoluted as the resolution was in the final episode of, who ended up where and everything else, I found that I was really interested in, okay, so now there's a larger world. Where do we go from here? So I'm keen to see how they build on that. It could be a recipe for disaster. It could be, it's not going to work outside of that West world. But I think it could be really cool if they can do it right. And with the amount of talent on the creative side and on the performance side, I have a tough time imagining they won't go some really neat places with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I keep coming back to the idea in my head of, you remember, was that Berkeley Breathed? Was it Berkeley Breathed had the Banana 2000 computer? Yeah. Right, that it was, and it becomes sentient and starts to walk out of the room until it unplugs itself. Yeah. And falls over.
For Jaime, we'll bring it back to, do you remember the episode of TNG, Jaime, where the bad guys have got in what yet another of the great something's gone wrong inside the holodeck, where the bad guys decide they're going to walk out of the holodeck, and it's, oh no, you can't do this to me, I'm Cyrus Redblock. There was an element of that too, of can those characters exist outside of the world that is the only world they've ever known, right? So could be cool.
Well, have you seen any of it, Jaime?
I've only seen season 1.
Oh, so you saw the episode where she finally escapes and gets on the train, and then realizes she makes it like halfway away from the station and decides she has to go back.
Right.
I think to go get her daughter or something like that, right? So I kind of wondered what would happen when she got past a certain point, but she doesn't go past that point. Anywho,
season 2, a lot of looking for the daughter.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing we talked about on last time on Spockcast was Jessica Jones, and again, I had watched it, and you had only watched 1 or 2 or 3 episodes of season 2. Yeah, you watched the rest of it now?
Nope.
You still haven't watched it? It's still on your PVR list. Okay.
No, we talked about last week, so I sort of worked on catching up on some of my summer delayed shows. I did finally catch up and watch all of season 2 of Legion. season, and I did work my way through a few other programs that I had been sort of putting off. But the Marvel Netflix shows, because they're so non-PVR filling, they do tend to be the things that fall to the bottom of the list, no matter how much I anticipate enjoying them. Knowing that they're there and that they're not going anywhere, it actually works against them in my timescape.
See, it's funny for me. Like, I know I've got a big drive on my PVR, but I've got it set to race after 2 weeks. If I record something and I don't watch it in 2 weeks, it's gone. I mean, I do that every now and then. I'll think, I want to watch this movie, and come back to it, and then 2 weeks later, I've forgotten it was there.
Yeah, so. I still have season 1, let alone season 2 of Handmaid's Tale on my PVR.
Really? Wow.
And have not gotten to either of those, in spite of countless.
You haven't watched any of it?
Not a single moment of it.
Wow.
I'm not proud of it, but there it is.
Man, oh man. All right. Of course, we talked about Lost in Space quite a bit last time, and we also talked about the Infinity War. We did a spoiler-free and a spoiler version of the review there. Yeah.
So, Jaime, did you watch Ant-Man and the Wasp? You're up to speed on the latest Marvel adventure?
No, I need to catch up on that one.
Yeah, let's talk about what shows we did watch. Let's do that.
Well, let's see. On our list here, so I saw one episode of season 2 of Jessica Jones.
Okay.
I don't know. That one episode didn't grip me, so I didn't binge through. Not seen Lost in Space. We did see Avengers Infinity War in 2049.
Yeah. We also talked about the viewer guide, which is why I put that there, the Voyager viewing guide.
Oh, right. Yeah. I actually have been watching a little bit of Voyager here and there as sort of a late night unwinding and go through and say, I didn't use the guide, which probably would have been a better way. Just sort of looked at the synopsis on Netflix, which is, they're always terrible. It's always hard to tell what's going to happen and see if I can remember if it was a good episode or not.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to you just reminded me of something which is kind of off topic, but so on Space TV here, which is owned by Bell Media, they play Star Trek continually. Like you can get the TOS, the original series, you can get the Next Generation, you can get Voyager. So I've been watching a bit of Voyager too, and but what I really want to talk about Space is they got rid of the magazine show that I watched forever. I can't remember what it was called now. Innerspace, yeah, with Teddy and Morgan and AJ Fry.
Yeah, and one of my acquaintances, Mark Asquith, was the producer, and he lost his job, unfortunately, as well.
Really? They all just got canned or whatever, or closed down?
Yeah.
I don't know what the story was, because that was a great show, because it kind of was a recap of, what people were watching. I mean, in fact, I think they even started the After Black thing with Orphan Black, which led off to after, the Talking Dead and all, After Trek and that sort of format where they would have the stars of the show come on and talk about thing. And I'm pretty sure that if it wasn't, I'm pretty sure it was Orphan Black that started that whole series of after the show kind of recaps, right? It was a great show. I mean, I really enjoyed the three hosts. They were fun group, right? So and Teddy, of course, has gone on to Mighty Trains, I think, right? So he's having fun doing that. But yeah, that was a loss. So Space TV, if anybody's listening from over there, not happy anyway, because it was good fodder for this show too, because it would give us a recap of things to talk about that we may have not have known about, right? So I have a couple of things to talk about during the break between last time and this time, and unfortunately the one that falls to the top of the pile is the Solo movie,
which I have not seen. And what? Yeah, so I had some doubts, and I think I'd said last episode that I didn't think it would be day one for me. And
really, okay,
it seemed like it struggled enough to the point where Disney's like, "Hey, this idea of doing movies every year, let's maybe not do that for a little bit and regroup."
Yeah.
So,
I don't want to be that guy, but oh man, I called that movie.
Yeah, well, you did actually, and that was part of what we talked about, and I think we talked about that a little bit on the last episode. But here's my review of Solo without spoiling anything for any. Well, maybe no, not really spoiling anything for anybody.
You could spoil the 5 things that they focus the movie on, because they're everything you would know without even going to the movie. That was the problem with the movie.
Well, let's recap that in a minute. But let me put it to you this way, okay? I have seen every Star Wars movie, every single one, a minimum of 5 times, right?
Even Last Jedi?
Well, I've seen Last Jedi. Well, no, my point is, though, like I've seen every single movie. I've gone back to the theater, watched it at least once time in the theater. I've watched it, on Blu-ray or whatever, disc, whatever I could get my hands on, right? I have only seen the Solo movie once, right? It's the only Star Wars property I have never said, I want to go back and see that again. I mean, there are parts of it I do want to see again, but yeah, it was just, it was like meh. Right?
It was a movie.
It was a movie. Jonathan and I used to have a way of rating movies when we were younger, where we would look at each other and we would go, "Is it a rental?"
Yeah.
You know, like is it a go see it in the theater? You know, so this I think I would wait till this came on. You know, a slow day on the channel where they had nothing else to show at 2:00 in the morning on Sunday evening.
Well, that's harsh. I don't know. I mean, it
wasn't that bad. It was a good movie, but still.
I obviously was dubious about it going in. You know, it was one of those ones where, you know, I kind of wanted to go in the same way that I kind of wanted to see the Meg, but I didn't. Just the fascination of, I can't believe they made this. But it just had disaster written all over it. And to be fair, it had some nice moments. I thought there were some half-decent performances, as we could fully expect. Lando Calrissian stole the show.
Yeah.
He was amazing. You know, I think we were all concerned about how Alden Ehrenreich was going to do as Han Solo. He was fine. There was a lot of talent working on the film. They all were working their butts off, but it was just so wildly unnecessary.
Yeah,
and
I think that was the biggest problem.
It just didn't take me anywhere. It didn't take me anywhere I wanted to go there, with the possible exception of the final scene, which, again, I don't know if Jaime has been spoiled by the internets, but there is one sort of major cameo weird twist, which I didn't see coming, and I don't think a lot of people saw coming, that was supposed to sort of be obvious, a tease for, we're going to do more of these. There was stories out there that Alden Ehrenreich had signed a 3-picture deal, so they were talking about doing more solo films. They clearly were trying to do a tee up for, this is now a new Star Trek or Star Wars sub-franchise. But I don't think that's going to happen. And so then there's this teaser that's just sitting there for what could come next. I don't know what they do with that. So even that has become an infuriation on top of an infuriation, because the movie wasn't great. And then at least there was this one tantalizing bit that now we know amounts to nothing. So overall, it's just a disappointment. And it just wildly unnecessary. Tell me something new. I'm more intrigued by the Star Wars television series that's coming, Mandalorian. We got a little taste of that last week. There was a little teaser came out. That is going to apparently be set in that era between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. Something we don't know about. So tell me something what happened in there. That's something different. You know, the anthem was, let's go backwards and we'll tell the stories of all these great things. Like the Rogue One, you didn't know the story behind the story. And, you know, the Star Wars stories were supposed to fill in these gaps, highlighting these great characters that you loved. Yeah, I loved Han Solo, and I still love Han Solo. He's still the coolest guy in the galaxy. Although maybe Lando clipped him after this. But I found myself just more and more thinking, like, did I need to know where he got his name from, or how he got his blaster, or all these little bits of minutia? It felt like you know, an interconnected series of Easter eggs which didn't amount to a hill of beans. And I don't know how you go forward with that. I'm glad they took the moment to say, like, hey, we really need to think about what these Star Wars stories are. We're not going to just keep churning them out until we really figure them out. Good. Do that. Take some time. Think about it. But we also know that they're developing currently 7 Star Wars movies, 2 separate trilogies plus Episode 9, and a TV show. Do they know what they're doing there? It's made me leery. It's made me concerned, even though I respect immensely the amount of talent they have working on this stuff. They've got Weiss and Benioff, the 2 great creators of the Game of Thrones television show, working on one trilogy. And they've got the brains behind Force Awakens, Last Jedi. What's that guy's name?
Rian Johnson.
Rian Johnson, thank you. Working on a separate trilogy as well. And they've got Episode 9, and they've got this television series. I'm glad to hear that in announcing the Mandalorian miniseries that they're doing for their new app that's going to come out in the next year or two, that they're going somewhere. They're exploring a new world. They're exploring a new character. They're not going back to the well. So I'm hopeful of that. There hasn't been any details on those 2 other trilogies. And clearly Episode 9 is moving forward as opposed to moving backward. But I think it's good for them to have a moment and think about, like, as much as people want Marvel movies as much as possible, what makes them great is that they're different. You know, you get Thor, which is a comedy. You get Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is a heist. You get, Avengers, which is just the height of an event picture. You get all these different flavors. So how are we differentiating these Star Wars movies? What are they? They feel like they're all kind kind of the same so far. They're just big Star Wars movies, or at least attempts at them. Maybe it is time for them to really think about, do we need one every year? Do we need to make them special? Do they need to come out every 5 years so that you're like, man, I can't wait to see what they do next for Star Wars? It really, watching Solo really hammered home for me the point that Star Wars movies are special. They're sacrosanct. That first 3 movies, not so much the second 3, are sacrosanct. They are part of so many people's lives. They are one of the indelible stories that unites popular culture. That's special. To build on that, you should be trying to make things that are equally special. And I'm not saying these artists aren't trying to do their best work, but when factored into the fact that Disney is trying to churn out, event pictures that make $1 billion or $1.5 billion or $2 billion in some cases, I'm not sure those things can ever be on the same wavelength. Are you trying to make your $4 billion back that you paid George Lucas as fast as possible? Or are you trying to make, build on this canon that is something very special to a lot of us? And Solo felt like, for the first time, like a real cash grab. It felt like buy the young Han Solo action figure, and it just felt like the first time where I was like, this is a Disney picture. This isn't Lucasfilms. This is a Disney buy my stuff.
Yeah, but by the same
commercial.
token, though, all those going back and redoing all the special effects in Star Wars, as you know, they've always sort of bothered me to a certain extent. Like, leave it alone is my attitude, and it's just it's more of the same in the same sense. Like, just let's take something and
but then
spin
you've
it out.
created a really fertile universe, and the question we have to ask ourselves is: would we be happy if we were getting stories from that universe that weren't around the characters that we loved? Again, Lando wasn't in episode 4, if we're going to go that way. He wasn't in Star Wars. He was somebody we met later on. We really didn't meet Boba Fett until episode 5, even though they went back and worked him back into episode 4 in the special editions. They introduced new characters as they went along. Say what you will about that prequel trilogy, and I'm, depending on the moment you catch me, I can like parts of it or not.
Right.
But at least they were sort of pushing and trying and introducing some characters and sort of, again, there's some places that they went there. George, for all the crap that he's taken, George, was and is a visionary. He has a sense of, really sort of creating and carving out this world. They gave us that. JJ gave us that with Force Awakens. We've gotten some new characters, but then they've been tent-poled around old characters. The first movie brought back Han and Chewie and Leia, and the second one brought back Luke, and the third one's going to bring back Lando, they've already said, and Chewbacca's there, and R2's there, and C-3PO's there, and
so Lando played by Billy D. Williams.
Billy D. Williams has already been confirmed.
Wow.
He's coming back for episode 9.
I did not know that.
So,
I never really did. I never really was a big fan of him in Star Wars. I've seen him in other movies, obviously, but I never got why he was cast as that character.
They loved his Colt 45 ads. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what that is. No, I mean, again, you can take or leave Lando. Obviously, I have the benefit of being somebody who was at the right age to really immerse in the Star Wars canon. I read all the comic books. I read novels. I, soaked it up and soaked it in. So for me, he's a much more rich character than just what we would have seen in episodes 5 and 6.
Right. I see. Yeah.
So for me, he feels much more realized. Again, they've done a good job in the last few years. They gave him some, his own miniseries in Marvel Comics. To me, he feels a little more fleshed out. And again, I loved the portrayal that he got in Solo. I think that was fun. Yeah. That was that was the high point of that picture. But I feel like maybe it's time to start thinking about moving forward. The Marvel movies, we're going to get that crossroads in the next little while. Whether they kill off or move on or retire characters, some of the actors are going to want to move on and never come back.
Right.
So they're going to have to think of ways to move on to continuing to expand that universe, new characters, new adventures. They're going to dig deeper into their well, and they're going to have to do new things, or they're going to have to recast, or they're going to have to reinvent. They're going to have to try new things. We've reached a peak of the Marvel universe that will probably peek at next summer's Avengers 4, as yet unnamed, and then who knows? Maybe Robert Downey Jr.'s done. Maybe Chris Evans is done. Maybe Scarlett Johansson's done. Maybe Mark Ruffalo's done. You know, maybe they'll kill some of those characters. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll ride off into the sunset and it'll all be good. Maybe they'll, you know, find a distant planet and they'll all go retire there. But we're going to see evolution of that world and that universe. And it's good and it's healthy. You know, as much as I love when they keep going back to Iron Man, I'm excited about Captain Marvel. And where they're going to go with that. I'm excited about another Ant-Man movie. I'm excited about characters they haven't even brought up yet because they're there in that universe to be played with. You could do that with Star Wars. You can either go deeper on the canon and really sort of go to some different places with other characters, or you can just create new characters and set them in this world. Hey, you know what? This is, you know, Bob. Bob's got a laser sword and he's going to go on an adventure and you're going to recognize some names, but we're not taking you to those planets. You're going to recognize some themes, but it's not the same worlds. Maybe it's time to go somewhere else and really think about expanding that world, because I don't really care about Han Solo, you know, as an adolescent being a spaz. Like, it's just not it's just not doing me any good. And I mean, and it was a crushing failure at the box office for them. The budget for that movie was listed kindly at $295 million. The box office take was $393 million. When you factor in all the marketing and promotion, which is probably almost the same, they lost money on that movie. Now, just let that one soak in for a second. They lost money on a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
That is a damning indictment of what the fans think about where that has gone.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the rental market, I mean, which is just starting up here. Anyway, we do have to move on because there are many other things to talk about. And we're also here to talk about the short treks as well, right? That's the whole point. But so I have a couple of quick ones, hopefully quick ones. But so I have a problem with the new Halloween movie coming out, you know, the Michael Myers thing. Let's give Jamie Lee Curtis a new role or something. So and I think, I don't know, there was a while back, I've never really seen all the Halloween movies because I never really saw the point of seeing them, but they were on TV one day in like a marathon thing, so I just sat by, you know, I worked on other things and kind of watched them out of the corner of my eye and kind of got the gist of the stories are all about. But so my question about this resurgence of the Michael Myers character and all stuff like that, apparently he's been in jail for 30 years or something like that. Like,
40, yeah.
Wouldn't they just lethally inject that guy?
Well, it depends on the state, I suppose. It's Illinois. Does Illinois have the death penalty?
I don't know.
No?
Jaime?
Even if they do this is a weird side tangent into the death penalty in the United States of America. So even if they do have it, a common thing that has come up is that they may not be able to get certain drugs to administer for like a lethal injection, for example.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So even if it's like technically legal in the state, they may have no practical way of getting the right drugs, or the drugs that have been traditionally used have been challenged legally as being inhumane. So now they need to find an alternative method.
I guess.
Oh, yeah. According to our friends at the Chicago Tribune, the death penalty is now illegal in Illinois.
Well, there you go. Maybe it wasn't legal when he was sentenced or something
abolished.
Like that. Abolished. Oh, abolished. Okay.
So there we go. So 40 years, apparently he gets out and goes home to try and take out Laurie Strode for the next time.
Fourth time?
Well, to be fair, it's only been once, right? Like wasn't she just in the one?
No, she was in the original one, and then they brought her back for like the 40th anniversary or 30th anniversary or something.
Oh yeah. Oh, did she do one of the Rob Zombie ones or something?
She was in, I don't know. I know she was in two of them, and now she's back again. She's the new Sarah Connors character, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on from Halloween. So we talked about last time about the fact that there was going to be an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reference there was a teaser about that relating to the Infinity War. Mm-hmm. I watched part of that episode. I mean, mind you, I hadn't watched any of the season, so I wasn't sure what I was looking for. But I didn't really notice anything. Did you watch that episode, John?
No, I put that on my sort of to-do list to catch up on that season because I didn't watch a lick of the season since they moved it to Friday nights.
Okay, yeah.
But I did read a few online articles because I was curious as to sort of what the fallout was.
Sure.
And yeah, I think everyone was sort of sold a bill of goods because they promised that it was going to be sort of this big
I thought half the characters would just disappear into a puff of smoke, you know?
Yeah, and apparently that was not what happened.
It's a good way to cut your cast, really.
I think, you know, it's the question, you know, we talked about it a little bit in a previous episode, how do we connect the Marvel television universe, the Marvel cinematic universe, and you know, there are references into those Marvel Netflix shows of, you know, are they gonna, you know, they talk about, you know, the event in New York, which is the attack by the Chitauri and Avengers, so they do tie in those things loosely, but right. I still feel like there's still a huge divide between those two worlds, and I just don't know, as much as I think we get excited at the prospect that all the media we take in is interconnected, I really don't think they want it to be terribly involved, because it's just logistically messy. I mean, I would have loved to have seen even just a cameo of like Daredevil swinging by a rooftop in Avengers, but you know, those characters
or R2-D2 going by in a
or E.T. in the E.T. in the Senate, right? I feel like those characters and their stories are so small by the scope of what's going on in something like Avengers. You'd lose them. Like, it would make them seem so small, and it would be counter to having them appear. Like, you'd be like, oh, Daredevil's there. What the hell's Daredevil gonna do? You know, like, oh, so he's like a weaker Spider-Man who can't see? Great. He'll have this, no problem.
All right.
Maybe Tony Stark can make him a costume.
All right, so let's move on to the headlines. We only have one headline this session. I guess we'll have a couple. Like, I thought we had a new Spock coming up. But anyway, let's talk about this. So, Halston Sage, who plays Alara on the Orville, apparently has left the show. I don't know if you guys had heard that.
No.
Yeah, I'd seen that on the Orville subreddit. And it's unclear precisely how many episodes she will appear in season 2.
Oh, she's in some of them? Is she going to fall into a tar pit or something?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if this was like the Tasha Yar moment, so we'll have to remember this.
Well, he's a security officer. Okay, that makes sense. It jives.
Yeah, tar pit, yeah. Mm-hmm. So apparently she's been replaced already, and I mean, there's an actress playing the role. And I don't know why, again, it's one of these, like, do they have to get an attractive girl to play the chief engineer again, you know? I mean, so Jessica Sohr, Shohr, is apparently replacing the character, or a character. And I was reading a little bit about it just this evening, and apparently Halston Sage has signed on to a Netflix rom-com, so that it may be her decision to leave the show. So I don't know what the story. Oh, here's a new Halston Sage Alara update from September on Reddit. Oh, Reddit's a great place to find stuff out.
A reliable news source.
All right, let's move on, because it's not going to be...
Well, my only feedback on that one is disappointing. She was an interesting character, and I thought she had some interesting stories still to come, so it's disappointing. If only we could have gotten... there's a few other actors maybe I would have preferred to see shown the door after season 1.
Right.
But she wouldn't have been the top of my list. That's disappointing.
Well, let's move on to the Star Trek universe, as it were. I thought I had pasted in here that maybe it was on Twitter. Under the Spockcast at Spockcast account, I had posted that they had announced who the new Spock character was going to be played by. And this weekend, actually, there was a picture of the character all dressed up as Spock with a beard. Well,
then they put a trailer out, right? He's in the trailer. He's in the new trailer.
Cool. All right. Well, I haven't seen that yet. So just a quick one, a couple of things here. Eagle Moss has revealed some Star Trek ship models. If you're into the model kind of thing, there's a link here I'll put in the show notes for that. Different... I think last time we were talking about the different enterprises and stuff, Jaime was mentioning that he liked the one from the first movie, I think it was. Is that not correct, Jaime?
I'd have to really check to see what the differences are between the refit Enterprise and the Enterprise A, but just looking at the Eagle Moss version, it's probably the Enterprise A that I tend to like the look of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the one that was slightly different than the... Is that the one in the movie where they... Or is that the second one with... I can't remember.
A is the one that they show at the end. It's in end of 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, okay, yeah. That one, with a sort of black detailing. Yeah, because in the Star Trek movie, the one that came back in, I guess, 77, where they spend 20 minutes just circling the model, you know?
Yeah. You mean the porno shot of the Enterprise that goes on and on?
That one, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Little Star Trek softporn. Star Trek shorts, yes. This is... we can come back to... Or we can talk about that, or we talk about it in a bit.
Did everybody see it?
Oh, yeah.
We did, yeah.
Twice.
Okay.
Twice.
That's right, because you guys have, we have to pay for stuff over here, but you guys have Universal Netflix or Universal Sci-Fi.
We get it on Space. We do pay for it, but we get it as part of our cable
they aired
package.
it in the middle of a movie on the Thursday night, and then they aired it right after Doctor Who's season premiere on Sunday. So I happened to be watching Sunday and watched they rebroadcast it then, because I guess that show ended at a weird time because it started at a weird time.
Yeah.
But they aired it then as well, so I just followed through and watched it again.
Yeah, my PVR messed up my recording of Doctor Who, so thankfully they replayed it later for the West Coast, and I caught it then, but I didn't notice that Short Trek was after that. So yeah, let's talk about Runaway. Is it Runaway, right? Yeah, with Tilly, and setting her up with a new plot. So here's what I'm getting from this short is that it's a quick little adventure with her and a new character, and possibly somebody she'll need to know later on in the series, right? When you think?
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting. I mean, they do sort of set it up as a theoretical beginning to a relationship between the two of them, a friendship.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to have a future payoff, or if it is just what it's intended to be, an interesting little lesson learned for both of them on who they are and where they're at. They both come into the beginning of the episode in very fragile places, and they both leave feeling much better about who they are and where they are in the world, and maybe that's all it's meant to be. I guess time will tell. I think it was a nice look at sort of where Tilly is at after really pushing outside her comfort zone over that first season of Discovery. And she reaches, and it was a really cool moment when they pan by and she's in her quarters and you see the medal that she received, and she's talking about being in the officer training program, and you really do get a sense of how far in such a short amount of time. We only had a relatively short season of the first season of Disco to get to know her, and she really did develop as a character from a very sort of weird, insecure young woman to somebody who she's obviously still got some of those characteristics, but you realize wow, she really evolved. Again, she was far and away my favorite character the first season. And in this episode, we see her encounter this alien who secretly boards the Discovery and causes havoc in the food dispensary area, launching countless amounts of food. I always wanted to see that weird old Star Trek food replicator go bananas. That was awesome. But it was really interesting to see the two of them again, both in very vulnerable places. She's frustrated because she's just had this weird conversation with her mom, and this other character is running away from a very important point in her life, and the two of them sort of both see the vulnerabilities and then the strengths in each other, and they sort of both coach each other into being in a better place. And again, you really sort of get the sense of Tilly, when we met her at the beginning of the first season, wouldn't have been able to get through that in that kind of fashion, 20-minute episodes or not. So it was a really nice little check-in on who this young woman is now, and really sets her up for, I think, a really interesting arc in season 2. We got her to the point where she did overcome some of these hurdles. Where are we going to go with her in season 2?
What do you think, Jaime?
I thought it was okay. I definitely like Ensign Tilly, and her character is great. I don't know what it was about the pacing that felt a little off to me. Maybe it's because I wasn't mentally prepared for only 15 minutes, so it wraps up rather quickly. So I have to really think about it for the next one, that this is more of a short story version of an episode. So maybe that's where maybe if I watch it again, I'll feel differently. That's not to say it was bad. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I did pick one of any of the episodes of Disco.
Sure.
But I thought it was pretty good from a short story standpoint. I think one thing that caught me off guard is, and we have some math here. You can't see it in the show notes necessarily as you're driving it home, but it's a key point that this Runaway has come up with a way. So her planet mines dilithium, which is a big important resource in this era, and she has come up with a way. I think it was an incubator or something. I think she said to regenerate, recrystallize dilithium, and that caught my attention because I remember in Star Trek: The Next Generation, in the episode Relics, where they find Scotty Scotty, who has been trapped on the USS Jenolan for about 75 years. This is season 6, so let's say approximately 69 years prior to the beginning of TNG, which began somewhere around the year 2364. So if you do that math, he got lost somewhere around 2295. And why is that important? Well, it was a big deal to Scotty that the dilithium chamber looked a certain way. He's like, oh, you're running low on dilithium. And Geordi's like, what are you talking about? We regenerate. It's not like you guys had to go mine it and find it, like you were gassing up the spaceship every 5 miles sort of thing. And we know that Disco takes place somewhere around 2255. So if I've done my very, very gross, rough math there, it's about a 40-year gap there between what this character is introduced versus when it becomes somewhat standard, right? Because I imagine that Scotty, at the very least, he's got a subscription to like Popular Mechanics or Popular Warp Mechanics or something. So I was a little surprised that he wasn't like, oh, wow, you guys must be doing this thing I read about, because it's been 75 years. So that's like an extreme nitpick sort of thing. It felt like it came out of weird left field. So I can only assume it will become important somehow during the season, or they've at least left a little breadcrumb trail that they can follow if they want to.
Yeah, and I thought that the character, I forgot the name of the character that
Poe.
Sorry, Poe. And I thought that Poe was her position in life. Will pay off for Tilly in the future. It'll be like the scene from Return of the Jedi, where she's being carried in on a spire, and they're going to put her on a fire and roast her, and then someone will recognize her and say, no, not her, she's my friend, kind of thing.
Right. We'll roast you in honor of the queen, sort of thing.
Yeah. Without trying to give away spoilers, I mean. Yeah.
I think it's interesting to see if these minisodes are meant to have a future implication. Are these a teaser for the season to come, or are these just meant to be tastes of this world to bring us up to speed and give us a little something to keep our attention and build us towards the season? I'm
So why? I mean, if you think about how much effort it takes to put together even 15 minutes of television, especially on this kind of scale,
think about the
right?
buzz that these have generated. Think about people are talking about Discovery when Discovery doesn't come back until mid-January.
Yeah.
People are talking about it in October.
Yeah,
that's it's a little marketing tool, right? It's a 15-minute commercial that you can't not tune into, or a 15-minute trailer for a season that's yet to come. The question is it setting up the season, or is it meant to be, hey, by the way, here's a little taste of this world to get you ready for what's coming?
Yeah. So how will they rerun these in the future? I guess they'll put all 4 of them together, right?
I think so. There's already a lot of hubbub online, I guess, because Netflix, outside of Canada and the United States, Netflix carries Discovery.
Right.
And I guess they haven't put that on there. I can't confirm that as of a recording, but I have seen the blogosphere of non-North Americans saying, hey, WTF.
What's up with that? Yeah.
Because for them, obviously, there are only a few options left for how you can find it. And they feel like if you're going to put this out there as a medium on Netflix, why aren't these on Netflix? And maybe there is a plan to glue them all together, or do something, en masse, or wait till all 4 of them are together and then do it. But either way, I think, there's a little bit of pushback on the fact that they aren't out there yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, overall, it was enjoyable. I mean, I haven't sat down and watched it again, but I do have it on my PVR. I will watch it again, probably.
Yep.
If that's the measure of anything. But
right, and we got one a month. So Calypso comes out on November 8th. That is about a character named Kraft. If he was in Discovery, he must have been a background character. In December 6th is episode regarding a very young Saru, so that's a character we know. Mm-hmm. And then on January 3rd is an episode with Harry Mudd. So there's definitely a Discovery connection there.
Sure.
The more cynical side of me says... Right, remember, longtime fans of this show will remember when I said, hey, right after the very last episode of Discovery, I waffled a little bit, but then I ultimately canceled my subscription to CBS All Access. And when given the opportunity to say why, I said, because all I wanted to see was Star Trek. And apparently they took that to heart, because they said, so what you're saying is, if I can tease out one a month of episodes, and not a full episode, just like one episode split across 4 months, why not? You'll subscribe subscribe, right? And sure enough, I did give them my $5.99 so I could see Runaway and episodes of Murphy Brown and The Good Fight, I guess. Maybe some CBS Sports, but yeah. So they definitely took my feedback to heart. Is how I feel.
Interesting.
It's good that they're fans. I mean, everybody should be listening to Spockcast, but it's good that you've got the big broadcaster behind you now.
The Spockcast bump, we'll call it.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's hope.
And all it cost was $6.
Well, that's like $20 Canadian, right? So
that's true. It's true.
Yeah.
That'd feed a Canadian family for a week.
In poutine, yeah, for sure. All right. I want to, before we get on to the most interesting subject today, but just a quick one here. As I saw that Mr. Robot was an article here got posted in the show notes that the technical consultant used Kibana on Mr. Robot. I don't know if you guys watched any of the last season of Mr. Robot at all.
I have not seen season 3, but I do have the DVDs on loan from the library. So
they do. What's interesting about it is that, and hopefully not giving much away, but I mean, it's like, I don't know if you probably watched the Sherlock reboots on BBC with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, but what was cool about that was it was one of the first thing that caught my eyes is the fact that you couldn't not watch the screen, because a lot of the time Sherlock is using a BlackBerry and texting, right? So, and there's a lot of back and forth between him and other characters. And it kind of wraps the whole sort of new media stuff that we're dealing with in day-to-day life. I mean, at the time it came out, everybody was texting, right? I mean, people are still texting today, right? But watching, as a technical person, as a coder, as I am and Jaime is, right? Watching a show like Mr. Robot, when he goes to the computer and doesn't. My favorite scene in Jurassic Park is when the kid sits down in front of the clear three-dimensional graphic user interface that runs the park's electrical system or whatever, or gate system, and she looks at it and says, "This is Unix. I know this," which it totally is not Unix, because Unix is there's no need for a graphic user interface on it. But so when you sit down and watch Mr. Robot and you see this kind of things that Elliot is doing on the computers when he's working, he's actually working with real tools that real people can use, like Kibana is an example, or there's a mail system out of Sweden, which I've forgotten the name of now. I'll put it in the show notes, where he creates this account on this server that's completely encrypted and not Gmailed or whatever, that's stored in the public cloud, as it were, but like a completely encrypted mail service, which is really cool. So the fact that Mr. Robot's technical consultants make sure that the geeks in us, or the geeks in the crowd, are satisfied they're not being hokey with their effects or their tools and technologies, right?
And they've announced that's headed into its final season too, right?
Is it? What is with this final season stuff? Holy cow.
Announced ahead of time that they're going to make one more season because they feel like one more season is all it's going to take to wrap up Elliot's story. So interesting
stuff. Yeah,
and I don't have a problem with that. Again, so many shows. I mean, some shows are cut too soon. Firefly, R.I.P. But some shows really outstay their mandate. I really have no problem with the creators saying, you know what, I'd rather tell the story and have the story told than just keep padding things out and trying to make more out of something than there is.
Well, Mr. Robot could have ended after the first season. It could have totally, because sure. it wrapped everything up in a nice bow, right? But bringing it back was just more, because it was such a deep show. The first and second season too. I think the second season was more about the character. Was great. Second season that's the one with the Angela woman, right? And
I think that the real tipper on that one is the fact that Rami Malek looks like he is going to be. I mean, he's already an award winner for his performance on Mr. Robot, but if you've seen the trailer for his new film Bohemian Rhapsody playing Freddie Mercury, he's a huge star. He's going to be taking bigger swings now, and I think I think one more season of Mr. Robot is probably all they could hold somebody that talented down to. Yeah,
so it's funny, I've always sort of mentioned that they always seem to do two movies in pairs. Like you have two disaster, Earth going to get blown up kind of thing. We've had Armageddon and Deep Impact, I think, and then they had the two volcano movies, and there's always a couple of earthquake movies, and there's sharks flying all over the place. Where am I going with this? Oh, yes. So and they're doing Bohemian Rhapsody, and they're doing an Elton John movie. Did you see that?
I did see that.
And it's same sort of glam rock era kind of stuff, right? So
it's time to start glorifying the stars of the 70s, apparently.
I guess, yeah. Interesting stuff.
Well, so more and more of them are, we're going to start seeing people wanting to tell those stories. I can't wait for when they get around to the new wave stuff from the 80s. I'm looking forward to those haircuts making big screens again.
Yeah. So the coolest thing that happened in the Spock cast universe recently is that Jaime Lopez has watched his first episode of Doctor Who.
Ooh.
But not just any episode of...
First ever of any Doctor Who that I've ever watched.
Which is why this is a perfect opportunity, because when I watched Doctor Who, I started watching Doctor Who in the 70s, right? And I think I was like one of a few people outside of England that knew about it. In fact, I think, I probably knew about it when I was quite young, actually. I remember I saw my first Darlak in my cousin's room when I was probably around 7 or 8. So I've known about Doctor Who for a long time. That'd be like 50 years for those of you doing math. And Jonathan, you've watched Doctor Who. I know you've watched the Peter Eccleston and David Tennant and Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi Doctor Who's. Did you watch anything before that?
I had a friend in junior high school who had come from England. He lived in England when he was younger, and he was a huge Whovian. Mm-hmm. And he had said, it's on every afternoon. They're showing it on. It was either, I think it was PBS was maybe showing it, or maybe TV Ontario, but it was definitely public access television. Right. And he was like, "Oh my god, you should do this show! I love it! It's so good, so good, so good!" And so
the effects are really cheesy.
I caved and watched that. And again, I have been a lifelong sci-fi fan. It was one of my first loves. It's something that I've really spent a lot of time with over my life, watching some pretty terrible movies, but a lot of great movies. I watched one episode of that in, I'll say 1987, and was like, "Oh my, okay, this is the new low bar." Like that cardboard box with a plunger sticking out of it is the lamest thing I have ever seen. Like, somebody literally painted a cardboard box silver and stuck a plunger on it, and that's the bad guy? You guys are kidding me, right? Yeah. Like, there's no way. So I ran and never looked back.
Really?
And it really wasn't until I'd heard that they were relaunching, Who went into a hiatus, I guess, in the late 90s.
It was really bad there for a while, yeah.
And then of course they brought it back with David Eccleston, and even then it wasn't really on my radar. And it actually was a friend of mine who was our critic at the newspaper I was working at, who got the first season on DVD and said, "Hey nerd, check this out." And even then it sort of sat on my shelf, and I think you had come over at one point and were like, "Is that the new season of Doctor Who?" And I was like, "I guess." And I think you watched it first and we're like, "Actually, it's not bad." And I was like, I'm still, I don't know. And it wasn't until maybe a couple of years had gone by and they had gone through him and then they had moved on. And I think it was about season 3 of the reboot that I sort of became aware of it. Mm-hmm. I agree. And it's a hard, like, that first season's a bit of a hard watch. There's some, it's not the best Doctor Who either, although it is nice that it's a little more modern. The Streets of Cardiff are a little more compelling than the cardboard boxes. But with David Tennant was where it really started to catch my attention. I really enjoyed his performance, and his chemistry with Billie Piper was fantastic, and I really bought in at that point, even if and I think the production value went up a bit. So I was in at that point to a small degree. I enjoyed the show, but I wasn't passionate about it. It wasn't until Matt Smith and Karen Gillan that was the tipping point for me, where I was like, okay, this is a fun show. These people are clearly really enjoying themselves.
Fezzes are cool, man. Yep.
They're clearly enjoying themselves. It really was a nice blend of action and humor and suspense, and it really was that sort of great who can be anything kind of vibe. You never knew tuning in week to week, were you going to get a horror, were you going to get a sci-fi show, were you going to get a time travel adventure, going to the ancient past, or far-flung future, where they're going to go meet with aliens, where they meet Genghis Khan. It was really just all over the place, and I really, really dug that. And there was a really good long game on those stories too, not just episode by episode, but there's a really nice sort of backstory, long plot. That being said, I was not a huge fan of Peter Capaldi. The last, I guess it was 3 years.
Right.
I watched every episode, faithfully still tuned in, and he certainly had his moments, and I think he's a fine performer.
Yeah, but Missy was out of the park, though.
What's that?
Missy was great.
She was. Yeah. And there was a lot of elements. Again, some of the supporting cast was great. I found that I don't want to come off as an ageist, but something about the older Doctor Who didn't really click with me because the last few had been quite vibrant, and I also didn't find the humor was as strong. I felt that like it was a little more serious. There was a lot of very weighty episodes. Obviously, there were some pretty heavy storylines that he got into, but it just never clicked for me. So it had actually kind of had put Who down a notch for me. It was the show that I watched, but it was a little more dutifully, I think, over the last few years than it was enthusiastically.
Right.
So I was excited that they were going to a new Doctor, and I think like a lot of people, I was really excited that they were going to try something new by having our first female Doctor. So this week's episode was a real appointment for me. I am obviously, we had our Canadian Thanksgiving on Sunday, and we made turkey and did that. So I didn't get to watch it when it was on immediately, but when I sat down on Sunday night to watch it, it was with a sense of hope and a sense of excitement that I hadn't felt for Who in a while. And I feel like it was pretty rewarded. She was great. Jodie Whittaker. I thought she was great. I think that there's, some potential in the supporting cast that they built for her, although this is the first time in a while that we've also not just lost our Doctor in Transformation, we've also lost our companion.
Right.
So we really are starting from ground zero.
Yeah.
It's the first time in 6 years, right, that we've started from scratch. Because usually there's been this carryover of one or the other.
We've also lost the TARDIS, too, which Jaime doesn't even know.
Yeah. So it
which
really
is another
was,
character on the show, right?
It was a real change. We're changing genders, we're changing actors, we're changing supporting cast, we're changing location,
changing wardrobe. Yeah,
we're really sort of starting something fresh. So as far as a starting point for our people like Jaime, it's a cool part to come on board. All you really have to know is Doctor really old. Doctor can change bodies, including gender.
And has two hearts.
Beyond that,
and is a Time Lord.
Yeah, beyond that, just sort of, move forward and you'll pick up the rest as you go. And
so I want to hear what Jaime thought of this show that he's just out of the blue, probably heard about many, many times before, but what did you think of this show as it stands? I mean, I've always wanted to meet people who had never read Harry Potter, who watched the Harry Potter movies. I think you actually are one now that I think about it, but what did you think about Doctor Who?
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. I knew a little bit of things, a little bit of the lore, like the regeneration stuff. I vaguely know what the TARDIS is. I certainly recognize it. It's such an iconic thing. The episode that I watched was a little bit weird to me tonally, not in a bad way, just I didn't know what to expect. And it was sort of Scooby-Doo silly and like the Predator dark, which I didn't expect. I thought, it'd be roughly like a Star Trek sort of tone, and it was definitely a little bit different. It has a lot of comedy. The character they're up against is kind of dark, so maybe it ends up being more like Buffy the Vampire Slayer in terms of tone.
Yeah, that's a good
at least this episode. Yeah, and I didn't know much else of what was going on. I think the Jodie Whittaker did a really good job as the Doctor, especially in this sort of transitional phase. She's got a lot of vibrant humor, and she's just as confused as I am, apparently, as she's trying to figure things out. So it's really good time to come into the show. They did, I noticed, put in a little bit of a, I'll call it like their own political statement about honoring the past but moving forward, which I'm not a Whovian, I'm a Hoobie, as I'll coin a Doctor Who newbie. I can definitely tell that they were trying to just own that right up front, that, this was somewhat of a controversial decision amongst a segment of the fans. I'm not a Whovian, so I don't know how much of the basis this represents, but certainly there was talk online about like, hey, this is really weird, kind of similar to what we saw with Discovery focusing on a woman as the main character as well. So that's kind of where I imagine it was sort of coming from. It wasn't distracting in any way, but even I sort of noticed it as somebody who's not into the lore and not into everything. But the characters are great. I like the Doctor. I actually liked the bus driver guy, or retired bus driver guy was somehow one of the funniest characters to me.
He's actually an actor from the Law and Order show. The law, the Law and Order show that they show on TV. It's still on. I think the Special Victims Unit now or something like that. They have like the crime and then they have the law piece at the end of it. There's a British version of Law and Order called Law and Order UK, I think, right? And the guy who plays Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, I've forgotten his name now. But he plays the young cop, and this guy plays the old cop, and they do that sort of, young cop, old cop kind of solve crimes thing in England with all the English laws and no guns and stuff like that, right? So it's a great show, but he's a great actor on that. So, but coming back to Doctor Who here, the first thing I notice is that the Doctor as a character is, it's kind of like, imagine, it's a bit like Jadzia Dax, right? Or Dax, I should say, because you can change the body, but the person inside is still the same person, right? And the first thing I noticed about Jodie Whittaker's performance is she, in as much as she made it her own show, her own performance, it was, to me, the character was still alive inside of her, right? In the same way that Dax is alive in Jadzia Dax and the other Dax, I can't remember her name. But when I watched her especially on the train, when she was first landed and she's just trying to figure stuff out, to me, that was totally the Doctor. The Doctor lands into these situations, he always comes along the Doctor always comes along to solve the problems, and it's always sort of, okay, what am I working with? He's kind of like MacGyver of, if a Time Lord was a MacGyver kind of guy, can put together all kinds of different, can solve just about any problem, and that's the magic of the Doctor as a character, so her performance was, I could see Christopher Eccleston, I could see David Tennant, I could see Matt Smith, I could even see Peter Capaldi in her performance throughout the whole episode, and yet it was still her own thing, right? And that may be part in the writing, but there was I think a lot of her acting, and I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard any interviews with her specifically about her performance, but most actors don't tend to watch the old shows because they don't want to be influenced by the other performances so much. But I think she did pull off that sort of frenetic energy that the Doctor has. The Doctor's like, he's a total quick start kind of guy, just comes in, solves problems, assesses things really quickly and reacts really, almost as if doesn't have a direction, right? And Jonathan alluded to the last episode, I think it was it one parter? I can't remember, the last episode with Bill and the Cybermen, and Missy, right? And the two masters, but how he loses the companion there. That the Doctor very rarely, he makes mistakes, because as a person, I don't mean to say Doctor he or whatever, but the Doctor makes mistakes, and it seemed to me that the Capaldi Doctor made more mistakes than any other doctors. Now I think about it, yeah, but and he makes the biggest mistake, really, or through not paying attention to what was really going on around him, right? And he loses because of that, right? In the Capaldi series, there were a couple of big losses for people, right? And some of them got solved and some of them didn't. So it'll be interesting to see where she goes, or where they go, the Doctor Who franchise people go with this performance. And I haven't heard anything negative about the fact that it's how we get this sort of male privilege backlash to the sci-fi stories and sci-fi tropes, right? We were okay with Missy being, the Master being a woman for many, many years without making too much of a fuss, and so I'd be surprised. I'll be galled actually if people make a big fuss about the Doctor being female now. So, and I'm sure the Doctor's been female before, and we also had a Time Lord in the character. River Song, right? River Song was a Time Lord, wasn't she? Right? Yeah. So
I think it would be really one of the great lines that was in the episode was when she says something about having to buy women's clothing, and he says, it's been a long time. She says, it's been a long time since I bought women's clothing, which opens up to a whole series of speculation, but is just a great Doctor Who line.
Well, somebody posted a picture of the one before Colin or Petrie. What was his name? Not Colin Baker, but there's another Doctor. The Doctor after Colin Baker. There's a scene where he actually is dressed as a woman in one of the old Who's.
Yeah, I think she was great, and I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Not lost in this episode is the fact that not only as we talk about all the changes that have happened, new supporting cast, new lead actor, new showrunner, right?
Yeah,
and that's a huge change for Who. Part of what's made Who the success that it is over the last few years is its creative team, and so now we're moving in that new direction as well. So, it's not just a chance for us to evaluate, the performers, but also the show as a whole. Where are they going to go with it? Is it going to be, continuing that classic vein? Are they going to go some new areas? I hope that it isn't just, now the Doctor's a woman, and so we're going to have a lot of, stories about weird circumstances now that the Doctor's a woman, because that would be terrible.
Yeah.
hopefully this is an opportunity for them to say, we can tell great stories, and it doesn't matter that, whether the Doctor's a woman or a man, although it truly matters that the Doctor's a woman or a man. It's about effing time that we've had a woman play this iconic role after 50 plus years. I did read a lot of sort of social feedback over that, and there was a lot of embracing of the fact that this was a long overdue step. So for us, we, on one hand, you don't want to make a big deal out of it and say, well, hooray, but yeah, it's a huge deal that they finally took this step, and one that I think hopefully I have no question Jodie Whittaker will live up to the mantle based on the first episode. I think now it's really about the show as a whole. How are they going to make the most out of having not only a great performer in her, but a whole new ball game to come at it.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, real time follow up: John Pertwee was the third Doctor, and Tom Baker was the fourth Doctor. So I think Colin Baker is the sixth Doctor, but I don't think I ever watched him. So too many Bakers.
Was Baker the one with the weird scarf and the hat?
Yeah, Tom Baker is, yes. Yeah, the big long scarf you see. And
that was the guy I saw that made me run screaming from the room and never look back. What's with that dude's scarf? Is that a plunger?
Actually, it probably was a plunger in the original Daleks, now you say that.
Oh, all right. I'm not kidding. It was. There's no question.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but anyway, we have to move on because, we're running out of time here. So, where are we in this list? So we have I guess our section of the show is called the Watchlist, right? And so Jaime, what have you got on your watch list?
Remember that time Jaime disappeared?
Yeah, he must have fell into the TARDIS or something. Anyway, my watch list item is First Man, of course, which I'm going to see on Friday.
First Man, yeah.
Yeah, and my concern about First Man is I've already seen things in the trailer which to me, for people yelling at their phones as we do this podcast, I mean, I yell at the trailer because there's a couple of lines that Neil Armstrong says, or Ryan Gosling, who's playing Neil Armstrong, says in the trailer that I don't think Neil Armstrong ever would have said or did say in reality. But so I'm looking forward to all the historical inaccuracies in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when from all the trailers, it looks like it's building towards being something that's sort of, more rose-colored glasses iconic as opposed to grounded 100% in reality. And if you wanted reality, you'd watch From the Earth to the Moon, right?
Well, even still, yeah.
If you want to see what they said, there are hours upon hours of film footage from that era.
Sure.
You can get a pretty good sense of at least the public persona of these people.
Yeah, there's the book and the semi-documentary book and movie called The Right Stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, it seems to me like First Man is almost going to be like if Han Solo was the first man on the moon. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We'll see if Guido shoots first or not.
Well, again, it's it's got a pedigree. I mean, Damien Chazelle coming off of a wonderful movie in La La Land. Obviously Ryan Gosling is a star, and this movie's got Oscar bait written all over it. And a subject matter that I think we're all familiar with. Although we say that with it being the benefit of men, who have been around on this planet for a while. Not everybody is familiar with all these stories. It's been a while since this happened.
Right. Yep. Well, I remember it happening, because I was looking up at the stars at the time. Jaime, are you back?
Yes. Sorry, my dog was fussing because I just had a delivery.
Your dog was fussing. So we were just talking about the watch list. What's on your watch list?
This one is Maniac on Netflix. Hopefully everywhere because it's a Netflix original. This is one that is a miniseries starring Jonah Hill and Emma Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it says, two struggling strangers connect during a mind-bending pharmaceutical trial involving a doctor with mother issues and an emotionally complex computer. I just finished watching this.
I watched it already. Really?
Yeah, it's good. I definitely enjoyed it. It's more on the comedy side, but not constantly funny. It has a lot of drama and. The aesthetic is interesting because it's got a future retro sort of look to it, as if the aesthetic of the 1980s continued on into the future.
Yeah,
cool.
That's what I got from the trailer. It looked like a 1970s sci-fi movie. It looked like a Charlton Heston 1970s movie, but made now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff. I'm sure there must be a website somewhere that picks out all the references they make, the thing that they're eating around as part of the a pharmaceutical trial, like a communal area. Looks a whole lot like the setup for Alien, the Nostromo. Was it Nostromo? Okay. There's a fact check item right there.
Yep. Nope,
I think okay. Yeah, where they're eating on the like the galley area of the Nostromo. It looks a lot like that, and I'm sure there are other cases. And since it deals with sort of psychological problems that these characters have, they delve into sort of like a dreamlike state that gives them a lot of opportunity to do some fun things and see the characters playing different roles.
Yeah. Huh. Another movie where a woman is a heroine. Actually, one of the first ones, I think. Actually, cool. All right. Well, we got to wrap it up. So let's do that.
Whoa! Where's my pick? Whoa!
I don't see a pick on the notes.
I don't get to make one. I can't just arbitrarily pick one.
Oh, you mean Greg Hugh now? Okay, go ahead. Be Greg Hugh.
The shadow pick.
Stealth pick. Yeah. All right. What do you got?
Well, my pick is going to be starting this Sunday and Sundays going forward. One of my favorite shows, one of my favorite guilty pleasures is Supergirl. Supergirl is coming back to CW on Sundays. It's moving days of the week, so it'll be interesting to see how it does on Sunday nights as CW moves to having Sunday content. They've never done that before, so this will be really interesting to see how that plays out. So Supergirl's on Sundays. Arrow moves to Mondays, and Flash is on Tuesdays now.
Is that everywhere or just in Canada?
No, that's on CW in the United States.
Okay.
I have been putting a call out, and clearly this speaks to my impact on all social platforms. No one has been able to tell me where I can watch The Flash on Canadian television. Because it is not out there. I put it out on Twitter. I put it out on Facebook this week. I asked the Nerdosphere, and nobody gave me answers. I've searched on Google. There are no answers. They're the most expensive television package that you can pick up from our good friends, the cable companies, includes one of the CW channels from the United States, and you can watch it there. But as far as I can see so far, there is no Canadian broadcaster for The Flash. I believe Supergirl will be back on Showcase. I believe I set my PDR the other day for Showcase television, which carried it last year. But if anybody has any answers, anybody who listens to this, hit me up and let me know, because I know some CW shows here in Canada are shown day after on Netflix, so I'll be checking that out to see if that's where it turns up. iZombie does that. Black Lightning does that. So maybe that's where it's headed. But right now, it had its premiere last night on CW and had no premiere on Canadian television on a Canadian network.
Huh.
So, where have you gone, Flash? Gone on a Flash, not for Canadian audiences, clearly.
Right. So yeah, I see it here. Nora is the first episode.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can find it on, I'm sure you can get it off iTunes. I'm sure you can get it off of less than appropriately obtained services. But as far as, again, last year, I believe it was on CTV here in Canada. The Canadian version of Netflix just got the first 4 seasons of Flash dropped all at once, so people could catch up. Maybe that's a precursor to them now carrying it live, just like they did for iZombie, for Black Lightning, and some of the Riverdale does that here in Canada. There's like a lot of popular CW shows are being picked up straight by Netflix as part of a partnership here, which is great. But again, even if it's airing a day later, and I had this problem with Black Lightning and iZombie, the blogosphere is merciless, and so you have to stay away from it for that whole extra day if you're getting it a day late here north of the border. I can't stress this enough. I know we talked about it here, and I've talked about it everywhere anyone will listen to me for the last 15 years. When will they get it through their thick heads? You cannot put up walls anymore to keep content within the United States or outside of other countries. We had this problem with a lot of shows where they were like, oh, it's going to air 6 weeks later in Canada. Even Killing Eve, one of the hottest shows this year, aired in the United States 3 months before it aired here in Canada.
Oh, really?
That's a joke. You can't do that anymore. Who is respecting that? That's crazy. So hopefully that is not the case, but it is pretty pervasive that we're still seeing inexcusable delays in non-real-time content. Kudos to our friends at BBC and Space for doing an exact time release of Doctor Who. It aired in North America live on television at the same time as it did, making its premiere in England. That's great. Why not? Why not? That was my rant. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I just noticed here that they do list it on IMDb that it broadcast in the US and UK and Germany, but it never said anything about where it broadcast in Canada for previous episodes. So, oh well.
I will let you all know in an update, and I'll be happy to tweet about it if I find out. But if anybody has any clues in the meantime, hit me up.
Sure. All right. Anyway, we have to wrap it up. We're way over time here. So that's it for another week. Or I guess that's it for another little while. We'll be back after the next short cast, I believe. What do you call it? Short trek. We'll be back after the next short trek. Jaime, if people want to get a hold of you on the interwebs, wherever they look.
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
All right. And Jonathan, if people want to get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter as @JPKNews.
And can't they also read some of your reviews on the Cineplex thing or something?
Yep. Just had a piece up last week on what to expect from Venom. If you have not already taken the plunge into going to see Venom, you can find my work at Cineplex.com. Mm-hmm. And there's a few different pieces there. I had a nice, fun time previewing the Meg as well, and lots of little tidbits on there if you're interested.
Cool. All right. And my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. So until next month, we'll say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That concludes another episode of Spockcast, streamed to you via Subspace Signal. I'm friend of the show, Greg Keogh, joining you from Sector 001. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with your Star Trek nerd hosts on the website or follow them on Twitter. They're @Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send them a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending it to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount of Gold Press Platinum at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help them out on the website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future. Wishing you peace and long life.
One thing I was going to say. What was it? No, it was related to something we were just talking about, but it wasn't going to fit in the show. So, oh man, it's gone. Lost and gone forever. Oh well, I'll remember later. And I'll go, oh.
So, yeah, there's a new trailer for the second season of Disco. You have to look it up. It's good.
Yeah,
it's got a Spock moment in there, but it's a long trailer. Like, I guess they put it up a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, it's pretty expansive. Like, I felt like I actually had a sense of what they were going to do, not just like a bunch of random scenes.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, you know, the thing about Maniac where they were being grilled with the White Room or whatever. Did you ever watch Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, Jonathan, or is that still in your pile of movies to watch?
Well, you know, you don't do a great job selling it when you're like, man, it's one of the worst sci-fi movies you'll ever see.
It's not
Take
one of the
the
worst
2 hours
sci-fi movies.
and watch
Very
it.
Interesting movie. It was.
You keep saying it's an example of how bad sci-fi was before Star Wars.
No. Sci-fi was way worse than that. That was actually a pretty good movie, surprisingly. Like, my point is that's what movies were like before Star Wars came out, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's actually it's the guy who did Thunderbirds. It's Jerry Anderson, right? So that was a state of the art. You know,
that
you
is
can barely
not a selling
see the
feature
strings
for anyone
on the
but you.
Millennium Falcon.
Just putting that out there. That is not a selling feature for anyone but you. You're the devotee of that show, Thunderbirds.
Yeah. Well, but by the same token, though, I mean, like, next time here's a spoiler for you. Next time you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, and you know the little round thing that the pod that attacks Frank in the movie, right? Next time you watch that, remember this: it's a cardboard cutout being moved towards the screen really quickly.
Yeah.
It's not a model. And so next time you watch that movie, just watch for the cardboard cutout moving towards the screen, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. That was state of the art. That was Stanley freaking Kubrick quality, right?
What year did that come out? Like 1967?
Yeah, 68 or something like that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
They hadn't even landed on the moon yet, you know?
Yeah.
And if you ever seen
how dirty you'd get walking on the moon.
Well, exactly. Like I was telling you before, it's like walking in an ashtray. And if you ever get the chance to go to the Smithsonian and see the lunar module that they have on display there, it's freaking tinfoil.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like they couldn't even afford canvas. No, they could afford canvas, but
it was 10 times heavier and would have been harder to get into space, right?
No, it's true. Like they literally went like there were parts of the ship where the astronauts said if they weren't careful, they could have put their foot through the side of the LEM, right? So it was like camping on the moon, literally. You know?
Yeah.
They weren't glamping, which is a new word I learned a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. I put that trailer up on our Slack so you can have a look at trailer 2. It came out last weekend for NYCC, the New York Comic Con was last weekend. Oh, that's
right. Yeah.
And they put up a new trailer to go with that. And there's a lot of nice little teasers, including a good close look at our weird new bearded Spock.
Cool. All right. Cool. Gotta go.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Have fun in Ottawa. When you're coming back Thursday, right? Okay.
I'll be back tomorrow night. Full day of meetings here, and then hop on the 5:30 plane home.
So I bought a ticket for Friday for First Man, but anyway.
That's fine. You have a good time.
7 p.m. All right. Yeah. 7:15 actually. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
See you around.
See you, Jaime.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Ew. Gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors. It helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Ya llegó nuestro mejor Black Friday. Ven temprano a la tienda este viernes y obtén regalos todo el día, como un cupón de hasta $500 de descuento a las 5 a.m. Y a la 1 p.m. podrías recibir joyería con diamantes gratis. Y quédate para un último regalo a las 5 p.m., porque un afortunado ganador obtendrá hasta $500 de descuento en todo su carrito. JCPenney. Celebraciones que valen la pena. Regalo solo en la tienda el 24 de noviembre mientras duren. Un cupón por cliente y por evento. Aplican exclusiones. Debe ser mayor de 18 años. Detalles en la tienda jcp.com.